From the All Indiana Podcast Network.
The All Indiana Podcast Network.
This is the News 8 Daily 8.
Now all the latest news.
Kylie Conway has all the news you need to know.
And more.
Please stand by.
Now, here's Wish TV's Kylie Conway.
Hi, this is Kylie Conway, and this is the News 8 Daily 8 for Wednesday, April 14th. Today, we're going to be slightly cooler throughout the day. Even though our highs will top out in the upper 50s, it's going to feel nice for any outdoor plans with plenty of sunshine, and the winds will stay on the light side. Indiana State Police are looking for a missing teenager from Elkhart. Tyrone Kirkland is 14 years old. He's 5'8", about 135 pounds with black hair and brown eyes. Police say that Kirkland was last seen yesterday afternoon wearing a green sweatshirt with a dog on it, stonewashed blue jeans, and black Nike shoes. Police believe he's in extreme danger. If you know anything, call 911 or Elkhart City Police. And happening today, there will be an emergency meeting. The CDC is set to discuss the use of Johnson & Johnson's COVID-19 vaccine after a recommended pause. The agency is looking to see if reported blood clots are connected to the vaccine. According to Indiana's health department, more than 128,000 people in the state have already had the single-dose shot. There were drive-through clinics planned at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We reported on that yesterday, talked about it here on the podcast exclusively. Those have been transitioned to the Moderna vaccine. But that meeting is set for this afternoon. We're told a CDC panel will review the cases and assess their potential significance. And while that happens, medical experts say this pause should not deter people from getting vaccinated. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are not implicated and are still available and safe. The decision to pause the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine came Tuesday morning. Of the 6.8 million people who have received the Johnson & Johnson single-dose shot, the CDC says 6 women between 18 and 48 years old developed a rare blood clot in the brain. One of them died. The U.S. Surgeon General says this move to pause is something the country was prepared for and says this is how the system is supposed to work.
It's important to say also that pausing is actually not unusual, that both when it, not just with vaccines, but with when new drugs come out, pauses happen often for these purposes to evaluate new developments, new clinical conditions that arise. Sometimes it turns out there is no connection, and then you proceed as before. Other times, if a connection is found, then the FDA and CDC may come out with recommendations that include warnings, for example, for certain populations that may be at increased risk.
Even if these clots are determined to be caused by the vaccine, the American Society of Hematology says that COVID-19 is associated with a risk of blood clots that is thousands of times higher. And amid the pause, leaders at Pfizer say production of their vaccine is ahead of schedule. They expect to roll out 10% more doses than expected and meet their 300 million dose goal by the end of July, 2 weeks early. The emergency meeting today is set for 1:30 to 4 o'clock and will be all virtual. So what happens if you had the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine? One thing health officials say is not to panic. Health officials are cautioning that blood clots associated with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine are exceedingly rare. Common side effects include arm pain and normal flu-like symptoms after getting the shot for a few days. According to health experts, there are more severe symptoms to look out for. Those symptoms associated with blood clots include severe headache, backache, abdominal pain, shortness of breath, leg swelling, tiny red spots on the skin, or bruising between 1 to 3 weeks after the shot. If those symptoms show up, health officials urge you to seek medical treatment right away. The White House is trying to ease fears. In a new video posted overnight, top U.S. infectious disease specialist Dr. Anthony Fauci stressed the importance of getting the shot.
Absolutely, you should get vaccinated. The danger of COVID-19 as a disease clearly, overwhelmingly outstrips any risk of an adverse event from a vaccine.
The White House does not want this news about the J&J shot to discourage people from getting vaccinated. And some people are suffering from long-haul COVID-19 symptoms, but many of them are feeling better after getting the coronavirus vaccine. That's according to a local doctor and the grassroots group Survivor Corps. The research is in its early stages. A study at Yale is actually being launched on the subject this week. Doctors at IU Health say that they're optimistic that some of their long-haul patients are finally feeling better after getting that COVID-19 vaccine. At this point, they do not know for sure if it's because of the shot or maybe something else. Hannah Mordeau reports.
It was very scary. I just felt like I will not survive a second run with this.
Juanita Strait can't fathom getting COVID-19 again. The California native got sick in March of 2020 and has suffered long hauler symptoms since.
The dizziness, the brain fog, the word salad, the fatigue.
So she got the COVID-19 vaccine in December. After both doses, she initially felt worse. Then
I feel like I reached about 70% better.
Diana Barrett, who started Survivor Corps,
very few answers with long-term COVID.
An online grassroots group of more than 150,000 COVID-19 survivors, says Juanita is not alone.
We did a poll at Survivor Corps, and out of 875 people who participated, 41% felt that their long-term COVID symptoms were better after the vaccine.
Barron says 14% of the group felt worse after the vaccine, but never got their second dose, and the rest didn't see or feel a change.
I am hearing actually anecdotally from a few patients that I see for long-haul symptoms that feel better after their vaccine.
Dr. Cole Beeler at IU Health says he's seen 20 to 30% of his patients improve.
They feel like a new person. They swear it was the vaccine. It was the only thing that changed. And it's anecdote, right? So it's hard to say that this is something that's real. But it's hard to argue with someone's personal experience.
So now it's up to scientists to find out why. Dr. Beeler says there are two theories. Either long-haul patients still have the COVID-19 virus somewhere in their body, and the vaccine helps the immune system get rid of it, or the initial infection caused an abnormal immune response, and the vaccine shocks the system to once again behave appropriately.
Any sort of evidence of patients improving from this completely unknown clinical manifestation is positive and optimistic, and we have to take it seriously.
As for Juanita, she's just happy she's vaccinated and on the road to recovery.
I'm grateful for my life, and not everybody was as lucky as me.
Again, that was Hannah Mordeau reporting. If you had COVID-19 and have long-haul symptoms and haven't gotten the vaccine, then you might be a good candidate for the study at Yale. Survivor Corps says they should have more information on how to join in coming out at the end of the week. And research shows that adults who exercise had lower incidence of hospitalization and death when they got COVID-19. The study looked at nearly 50,000 adults who had the coronavirus and found significantly better outcomes for people who got 150 minutes of at least moderate physical activity each week. The data is published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. And to other news this morning, a busy intersection is back open after it was shut down for several hours after a police chase ended in a crash. The wreck was at Meridian and Fall Creek Parkway. IMPD says that the officer involved is in the hospital and stable. Police say medics checked the other driver out. Right now, IMPD is not releasing the names of either person. They're also not saying what the chase was about. And a third night of clashes between protesters and police in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Officers arrested 60 people. Officials said overnight that many of the arrests are for rioting and other criminal behavior. Police say protesters threw alcohol bottles, bricks, and cans. According to Minnesota Operation Safety Net, there are no reports of looting or business damage. Authorities are now preparing for protests to continue in response to the killing of Daunte Wright. And today, prosecutors are expected to decide whether to charge the police officer who shot and killed Wright. The case is now in the hands of prosecutors in a different county than where the shooting happened. This is a practice county attorneys in the Minneapolis area adopted last year in handling police deadly force cases. Prosecutors in Washington County have received information on the case from state investigators and are hoping to have a charging decision today. Kim Potter was a 26-year veteran of the Brooklyn Center Police Force. Mayor Mike Elliott said the city had been moving towards firing Potter after the killing, but she then resigned on Tuesday. She released a short statement saying she is resigning in the interest of the community and has loved every minute of being a police officer and serving the community to the best of my ability. CNN senior legal analyst Laura Coates says charges are judged by the Supreme Court standard and by the reasonable use of force aspect.
You do have a whole body of law based on negligent homicide. And as long as you were negligent, you could appreciate a risk or you acted in a way that disregarded something that was a known risk, that'll all be factored in. And remember, a taser and a gun, there have been precautions that have been set up to avoid this mistake. And so we'll have to look into all these things.
Brooklyn Center police say Wright was stopped for expired license plates. That's when police say they tried to arrest him on an outstanding warrant, which was for his failure to appear in court on charges that he fled from officers and possessed a gun without a permit in June. The police chief says Potter mistakenly grabbed her gun when she was going for her taser. The Brooklyn Center police chief also resigned Tuesday. The mayor has called for the governor to move the case to the attorney general to prosecute. He hopes both resignations will bring some calm to the community, but plans to keep working toward full accountability under the law.
Searching for a romantic summer getaway? Escape with Rich Girl Summer, the new Audible original from Lily Chu. The exquisitely talented Philippa Sue, returning to narrate her 5th Lily Chu title. This time, Philippa is joined by her real-life husband, Stephen Pasquale. Set in Toronto's wealthy cottage country, aka the Hamptons of Canada, Rich Girl Summer follows the story of Valerie, a down-on-her-luck event planner posing as a socialite's long-lost daughter, while piecing together the secrets surrounding a mysterious family and falling deeper and deeper in love with the impossibly hard-to-read and infuriatingly handsome family assistant, Nico. Caught between pretending to belong and unexpectedly finding where she truly fits in, Valerie learns her summer is about to get far more complicated than she ever planned. She's in over her head and head over heels. Listen to Rich Girl Summer now on Audible. Go to audible.com/richgirlsummer.
And Daunte Wright's family members have connected with relatives of George Floyd, whose death also sparked mass protests. Floyd's family members met with Wright's mother and other relatives in Minneapolis. Wright's mother is also talking about the last time she spoke with her son. She says when police pulled him over, he called her to ask about insurance information.
When I called back, the girl that he had in the car answered the phone, and it was on a FaceTime. And she said, she was crying and screaming, and she said that they shot him. And she pointed the phone towards the driver's seat, and my son was laying there, unresponsive.
My Lord.
That was the last time that I seen my son.
Wright's mother says her son told her that officers had pulled him over because of an air freshener hanging in the rearview mirror. But again, police did say that they pulled him over for an expired tag. And the Minnesota Timberwolves and Brooklyn Nets used a rescheduled game to make a statement. The two teams wore shirts last night reading, "With liberty and justice for all." The words "for all" are in all caps. A moment of silence was also held for Daunte Wright. Their matchup was originally canceled Monday in response to Wright's death. And some of the nation's leaders and one former leader are reacting to Wright's death. President Biden addressed the shooting at the beginning of a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus.
I know it's been a pretty painful week, with the losses we've had.
Biden added that the caucus was meeting to deliver some real change. Vice President Harris said the nation needs justice and healing. She spoke during a White House roundtable.
He should be alive today. And to his family and loved ones, you must know that the president and I grieve with you as the nation grieves his loss.
Harris added that law enforcement must be held to the highest standards of accountability. And former President Barack Obama is calling for the country to reimagine policing and public safety. In a statement posted on Twitter, Obama writes that he and his wife Michelle will continue to work with all fair-minded Americans to confront historical inequities and bring about nationwide changes that are so long overdue. The city of Indianapolis has already enacted some police reform. The City County Council added civilians to the General Oversight Board for IMPD in October of last year. And the trial for a former Minneapolis police officer is taking place only about 10 miles from Brooklyn Center. The judge in that case is telling the jury to not talk with anyone or watch the news in light of the police shooting. The defense is calling on its earliest witnesses. A use of force expert who is a former police officer testified yesterday. He told the court that Derek Chauvin's actions were appropriate in the arrest and restraint of George Floyd.
I felt that Derek Chauvin was justified and was acting with objective reasonableness, following Minneapolis Police Department policy and current standards of law enforcement in his interactions with Mr. Floyd.
The witness then described how the crowd at this scene became a threat to officers.
You see that Officer Chauvin's focus started to move from Mr. Floyd to the crowd. To one point, I think Officer Chauvin felt threatened enough that he withdrew his pepper spray canister.
The prosecution challenged that idea. They showed a different video of the crowd of several people standing there with their phones out peacefully.
Would it be fair to say that there is nothing that the bystanders are doing at that moment in time that we just watched that would have been distracting or preventing the defendant from attending to Mr. Floyd?
Not during that video clip, no.
The jury could start deliberations as early as next week. And we learned this morning President Biden will speak in a joint session of Congress later this month. It will happen April 28th, just short of Biden's 100th day in office. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi invited him to speak about his vision for the country. Pelosi says she waited longer than usual to make sure the session can happen safely in the pandemic. And today, Biden is poised to announce a new timeline for pulling all American troops out of Afghanistan. Officials say he wants a full withdrawal done by September 11th, a date full of symbolism because it will mark 20 years to the day since the attacks that prompted America's wars in the Middle East. The Trump administration had set May 1st as a deadline as part of an agreement with the Taliban. U.S. officials say there are currently about 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. A study focusing on food says school meals are getting healthier and are now better for kids than many other places they get meals. Tufts School of Medicine analyzed the diets of more than 21,000 students from 2003 to 2018. Researchers say more than half of school lunch food was of poor nutritional quality in 2003, but less than a quarter of it was poor in 2018. They also say school food is more nutritious than prepared meals from the grocery or restaurants. One author notes that the improvements largely happened after 2010 when the Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act was passed. To business headlines now, the head of the IRS calculated that tax evasion in the U.S. may total $1 trillion a year, a figure that is multiple times higher than previous estimates from the federal government. The IRS chief says tax evasion is up drastically in recent years, and the IRS commissioner says that IRS funding boost could add nearly 5,000 auditors. Disney theme park employees will have more flexibility in their dress code, particularly around personal expression. Disney will allow workers to have more gender-inclusive hairstyles, jewelry, nail styles, and costume choices. Cast members will also be allowed to show appropriate tattoos. Disney has already started to add more inclusive attractions and experiences. United Airlines is working towards a more sustainable future with the launch of the first-of-its-kind Eco Skies Alliance program. Working with the airline, more than a dozen leading global corporations will collectively contribute towards the purchase of about 3.4 million gallons of sustainable aviation fuel this year. And the U.S. government is urging agencies to apply patches to Microsoft servers. The feds say there is unacceptable risk on the servers. Unlike patches issued in March, which fixed gaps that had been exploited by Chinese hackers, Microsoft said it is not aware of exploits of these new vulnerabilities. And apparently we have enough toilet paper for now. Toilet paper sales in January were 4.3% lower than the same month last year before the onset of COVID-19 spurred consumers to amass rolls by the dozen. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. That was followed by a 14% year-over-year slide in February and a 33% plunge in March. The sports world is sharing tributes to beloved player, coach, and commentator Bobby Slick Leonard. The Pacers shared a video on Twitter before last night's game with the caption, "For Slick." There was a plaid jacket representing his signature wardrobe placed on his empty chair. Leonard was a championship player with the Indiana Hoosiers, a championship coach for the Pacers, and later a color commentator for the team. We spoke to a fan there at Bankers Life Fieldhouse, moved to tears about his passing.
Yeah, I've been a Pacer fan my whole life, and because of COVID, I haven't been here since March of last year. And when I found out today that Slick had passed away, I had to be here because without Slick, we wouldn't have the Pacers.
A banner hangs in the rafters at Bankers Life Fieldhouse in honor of Slick Leonard. 529. 529. That is the number of wins he had with the Pacers over 12 seasons. The Pacers announced their legendary former coach died on Tuesday. And finally, a former IU basketball player, known well, very recognizable. He turned assistant coach, and now he's settling back in on his Bloomington stomping grounds. Dane Fife we're talking about here, and now he's laying out his expectations for the Hoosiers. The school officially introduced him, and our Olivia Ray learned what he's first focusing on.
so many stories come back to me, funny stories during practice with Coach Knight or Coach Davis. Just not much has changed, Olivia, and that's what's really unique about it.
Except for it's been over 15 years since Fife has actually been a part of the Indiana program. But for one of the most accomplished Hoosier players, a return to the Hall, it was a no-brainer, even after spending the last 10 years with the Spartans.
Coach Izzo's always known that my dream is to coach at Indiana. I've always felt that in Indiana basketball, the Indiana basketball job, by and large, should be coached by somebody who played or coached here or spent a lot of time here. This place, I think, will mend a lot of fences here.
A former player leading the way, surrounded by other IU alum, is Fife's formula to restoring IU basketball to its former status and mending a fractured fan base. So to the Hoosiers who were booing their team off the floor in the building behind me at the Big Ten tournament, Coach Fife, he was listening.
Seems like some people forget. Well, I think it's a good time for me to be here to remind people that Indiana fans don't typically boo. You know, it made me mad, and I'm not afraid to lecture a few people because this is my program. This is your program. This is Coach Woodson's program.
Other than lecturing, Fife's main focus is adjusting to Coach Woodson because prior to his hire, the two were only tied together by their Hoosier history.
I'm not even sure we've met. I've known him. I've known of him. Lots of respect for him. You know, Coach Woodson comes from the NBA. I got to figure out what types of players that work best with him. And we've got to dig in with people and figure it out.
High expectations for Indiana's all-time career steals leader as he's handed a clipboard at his alma mater. Olivia Ray, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
This has been your News 8 Daily 8 for Wish TV. I'm Kylie Conway, online at wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook when you search Wish TV.
Check out more podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
allindianapodcastnetwork.com.